Sacred geometry is an amazing spiritual tool, or it doesn't have to be spiritual, but it is my tool that I have discovered. I use it with me all the time in my life to unlock my consciousness and to reach my higher level of awareness. And there's many tools that we can use. For me, I chose sacred geometry. I didn't even choose it. Sacred geometry chose me, because I remember when I first saw it, the connection was instantaneous. I didn't even think about it. I knew that was it. I knew it is sacred geometry, and I don't even want to call it sacred geometry because I don't want to give it my power again. Anything that's sacred, it means you're giving it power. You are sacred, I am sacred. So everyone calls it sacred geometry, but I choose to call it alchemy geometry because it has the power to alchemize different situations. And the more you learn about it, and I have an online course about that, I'm actually working on it. It's going to be an amazing online course that shows you how to use sacred geometry in your life, to alchemize your life, to transmute things you don't want, to change them into things you want. And that's the tool I use, and sacred geometry can help you with that. It is mathematical, but artistic, and I love that combination. I love that combination of technical and artistic. And we combine them together in harmony. That's it. You know, I didn't even second guess it. I right away got it tattooed here, and I have another sacred geometry here. And it's just something that I believe in so hard, and something that I've been obsessed with for years. And just like how many people are obsessed with other tools, for me it's sacred geometry.
Where does it come from?
So that is the mystery, that is the enigma. Sacred geometry, it is unknown where it comes from. It's unknown. There has been so many people who have talked about it in different books. It has been found and seen in many ancient temples all around the world, including the Temple of Abydos in Egypt. But no one knows who came up with it, who invented it, who discovered it. No one knows. Now, I checked so many sources and I read so many books, and it is not known. The oldest mention of sacred geometry was by Pythagoras and Plato, and those are one of the oldest records we have of sacred geometry. And I mean the Platonic source because that's also sacred geometry. But that's from a mainstream conventional perspective. But for me, I believe it dates back all the way to Atlantis, all the way to ancient Egypt, which was part of Atlantis, because Atlantis was not just a city, it was a whole civilization. And that's where sacred geometry comes from. If anything, I believe sacred geometry is a code that you can use anywhere in the universe. It doesn't just apply to Earth. It applies to multiple dimensions, and it applies to the whole universe. And I think probably one of the earliest civilizations that used it was Atlantis, because I had an incarnation there, and that I strongly believe so.
Can you see sacred geometry nowadays anywhere in the world?
Unfortunately, I mean, the answer is yes and no. I'm gonna start with yes. Yes, I see it a lot on the internet, in websites, in blogging, articles, people making a lot of mandalas out of it, using the fundamentals of sacred geometry. They make mandalas. I see it on the internet quite a lot. Artists, all sorts of artistic media.
Is that sacred geometry?
Yeah, oh my god, absolutely. Here we go. This is the Hansa hand, which stands for protection from the evil eye here. So this is when you have it, it will give you protection. This is a very ancient sigil that existed in many cultures, in the Islamic culture, in the Jewish culture, and even back to the ancient Egypt culture. This has existed in Indian culture as well. And the Hindus use it as well. And it's for protection against the evil eye. It protects you against the evil eye. And I will talk about that in another video. But it is based on sacred geometry as well. So that's my answer as a yes. No is unfortunately, my no answer would be applied because I believe that you don't see it in architecture. You don't see it in interior designs. For example, when you go to architecture designs, interior designs, you don't see sacred geometry. It's like people treat it as something ancient, but they don't apply it to the modern world. So it's just considered as something. For example, if you go to a modern, brand new building somewhere, you're not going to see sacred geometry.
What's the difference between sacred geometry and just geometry?
So, geometry, the conventional geometry is the geometry that we study in schools, that kids study in schools, that has algebra and geometry, basically. The boring stuff. And it's used in physics, it's used in mathematics. Sacred geometry, the rules of physics and mathematics also apply to sacred geometry, but the difference is that sacred geometry have a harmonious shape to it. For example, when you look at the flower of life, when you look at Metatron's cube, there's harmony. There's always when you look at it, there's always a center, and there's something that spreads out of the center. And all the shapes look beautiful. When you check sacred geometry in ancient temples or mosques around the world, the patterns are so pleasing to the eye. There's always almost like a rinse and repeat copy paste of the pattern, of the same pattern, but as you copy paste it and you apply it to the same area, it forms this beautiful harmonious form that almost it's calming. It, like all of us, when we see these patterns, we're just fascinated. We're fascinated, and we're probably in awe, and that's the difference. So it's almost, I see that sacred geometry, the main difference is that it has art in it, whereas in normal geometry, it's pure science. It's just technical, scientific, and mechanical, whereas sacred geometry is artistic. It has expression in it.